Right.
And we're live. So, welcome everybody to yet another live interview show with Become a Fearless Father. And today, my guest is Owen Graham. Owen, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, man. Honored that you asked me to appear on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. So, we get right onto it. As people can tell, I still got my I'm Batman voice. I know, still practicing, I guess. Anyway,
Okay.
can't take away our fun. So let's go right on, man. I had
Okay.
a question, and everybody can see where I'm going to start off with, and I want to talk about the business model, and then with the priorities in your family, and then Owen and I were chatting a little bit back and forth today, and he's like, I would also like to talk about having free-minded kids, happy kids. And then he said in brackets, which is for me actually the most exciting thing, little entrepreneurs. And I was like, crap, you know what? That's the first thing we're going to talk about because nobody can see this, of course, but I got a big sign here or a big board here, all full of numbers and words and all kinds of stuff of my boys and I creating their first business. So I was like, you know what? That's what we're going to talk about. And I think everybody that's watching is going to be like, yeah, I want to listen more. I want to learn more about that. So, oh, man, share with us, man, because I'm always interested in, we're entrepreneurs. Is that, entrepreneur dads, is that what we want for our kids? Or, are we going to do the old, the same thing as everybody else is doing, like make them go to school and university and and then get a 9 to 5? Or are we already trying to prep them for being an entrepreneur? And then, of course, very important, how do you do that, right? So please share your journey in being a fearless father.
Okay, great question. Well, I want to start off by saying that, I'm not an expert in anything, right? So what I'm bringing to you here is like not really a prescription, but really just a description of how I am navigating
Mm,
imperfectly. Because as parents, we know, as fathers, we don't have it all figured out,
nope.
but hopefully we have the intention of trying to do the right thing. And so like you, I know that I never wanted to impose the way I wanted to live on my children.
Mm,
And that's from everything. Like I grew up loving sports, playing sports, watching sports, and like I've never did that with my son. I've got a 7-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. And
mm-hmm.
I just felt like, I didn't name them after me. Just like be your own self. You know what I mean? And figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
But to me, entrepreneurship is really just an extension of being a creative thinker
Mm-hmm.
and also maybe someone who can execute. Now, I've had my strengths in some of those areas and my weaknesses in some of those areas. And I've also known that I was raised in a very academic family.
Mm-hmm.
My parents have degrees upon degrees upon degrees. My dad is a professor, PhD in engineering,
Nice.
computer science, stuff like that. I never really took to the engineering side of things.
Mm,
I'm a middle child, and my personality seems to be more. I like people, and he never understood that. He never understood like, why do you want to like talk? Talking was speaking was seen as a negative in my family, and
mm,
expressing my opinion and my energy and humor and things like that were just never really valued. And
mm,
I think that in an extension in the school system, they're not really valued, right? If
mm-hmm.
you have a child who's extremely engaging and they can entertain their classmates and get the attention of everybody, the report card usually goes home. This kid is a disruptor in class, right?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they're not lying. The kid is disruptive. If you're a teacher of 30, 40 students, and you've got this one kid who just like basically captivates the attention away from you, it is a disruption.
Mm-hmm.
So the typical school model doesn't really seem set up to allow and foster and incubate creativity like that. And so for me, raising an entrepreneur was simply, it started with me giving my kids a different school system.
Mm,
So my children have never attended school. They've been homeschooled,
nice.
unschooled their entire life. That does not mean I have another doctrine or dogma that I place upon them like an entrepreneur path, but
Mm-hmm.
it does mean that I'm very observant. My wife and I are very observant. We pay attention. We have conversation. We allow them to explore all types of creative ideas. And then we start hearing things echoed back like, when can I work? You know,
Mm,
like why can I work? I know I'm only 7, but can I make some money too? And I have an idea, I've got this idea,
Right.
and so our job is to say, really, what's the idea? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe now, how can you put that idea out there, experience the failure that we were discouraged from experiencing, which is a whole nother podcast, right? But
Yeah.
I truly believe my entrepreneurial journey is still in development due to fear of failure, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
idea of being perfect and getting great grades, and if you don't, you get, really negative consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's what it is. It's my children know that they have the freedom, and we have conversations about jobs. My son came to me right before this podcast, and he said, "Dad, do you know what I want to be when I grow up?" And I said, "What do you want to be?" And he said, "A truck driver." Now, I
All right.
noticed I noticed that he hops around, of course, like most kids do. So
Yeah.
lately, he's been really into trucks and 18 wheelers, and he's studying them. And he's. So yesterday, I told him, well, 18 wheeling, it's a job that is pretty dangerous, and you work long hours, you drive through the night. And then he's like, well, that's why Elon Musk is working on that. We're gonna have self-driving car trucks and stuff like that.
Oh, snap.
And so it was funny today. He said, well, Dad, I know that it might be dangerous, so I'm thinking maybe I'll own a truck
Uh,
so I don't have to drive it. And it's just like when you let kids become creative
mm,
and just, observe, because they are observing, they're seeing how, believe it or not, they don't really have anything to judge against it. They've never seen me like go away for 8 hours and come back,
uh-huh.
fortunately for them, and sometimes unfortunately for me, they've never had that. They've never had that model, so they've
Mm,
always seen us. Whenever I go into my office and work for 4 hours, they think that's the worst thing in the world. Like,
yeah.
how can you be away from us? Can you get a different job?
Yeah.
So, and that might take us into the types of models we want to think about
Yeah.
when we're talking about creative. So yeah, so as a parent, it's just about giving them creativity. It's not really what we add, but what we've subtracted, which is kind of just the rote memorization, the school system that drills kind of the creativity out of you.
Mhm.
And right now we're traveling. I'm in the country of Mexico. I've it was a part of a vision a few years ago to travel with my family and let them kind of see the world. And
Mhm.
so we're figuring that out, right? We're figuring that out, and even that is I believe unconventional. If you're unconventional in one thing, that it's transferable to many things.
Mhm.
So if they can just be exposed to just like there is no normal, you know, then they can choose their own path, but not be afraid of the abnormal. If that
Exactly.
makes
Yeah, yeah. Love that. Love that. People, you're watching this, make sure to smash that heart button as many times as you can. And leave us a comment. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you have any questions about raising your kids to become little entrepreneurs, or at least not raising them to be little entrepreneurs, but at least give them the opportunity of not just being taught by school and our system that you must get a job. So,
well, Klaas, the thing is too, these kids are smart, man. Like
mm,
they're bringing entrepreneurship ideas to me all the time. They're
nice.
telling me about Minecraft and owning servers, and I'm trying. I thought I was pretty technically inclined, but they're the ones who know what's trendy and what's creative, and
Mm,
for better or worse, sometimes they know that Ryan, little kid on YouTube, is making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or millions of dollars. Like they're aware of
mhm.
this world, so they're like, what do you mean? Like I have to be 18 or 16 to get a job? Like, you know, that doesn't make sense. And if I don't have to wait till I'm 18, what can I start now?
Mhm.
So we do slip in like, hey, e-commerce and the lemonade stand of the 21st century is what I like to call it, trying different little things. But for the most part, I know that if they can get practice in being imaginative and in
Yeah.
execution, discipline and things like that, then the step of setting up a payment thing or whatever, or hiring people, that'll come with development. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
we're not running an entrepreneurial school, but we are kind of just elevating creativity and things like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So, Owen, share us a little bit about more about you, right? People heard
Mhm.
now, like, wow, this is absolutely fantastic how you're raising your kids and give them ideas. Now we got to know as well, man. Who's Owen Graham?
Well, if I had that answer,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that has been, I think every young parent, my daughter today asked me, is being a parent, like, is it fun? Is it good? And and I'm always honest with them. And I think that, we are always going through phases of self-discovery, right? And again, I believe that's one of the things that the school system and many of the systems of the world kind of drive out of it. I've always known that I like to talk, right? I get energy from thinking and sharing ideas.
Exactly.
But I have like some memories of like getting in trouble a lot for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're figuring and navigating what you want to do, a lot of times it's through narrow confines. Believe it or not, after all the talk that I just did, I went to school to be an educator. I
Mm-hmm.
went to school to be a teacher. I completed all my education coursework. And at the end of it all, when I did an internship for 6 months and I was in the classroom with the students, I realized there's no way I'm going to be able to do this for the next 40 years of my life. Like there's just no way I'm going to be trapped in these four walls here. And so I did not actually turn in a final project. I happened to I was in a sales marketing business at the time and I was doing well. So I actually didn't graduate from college with my education degree.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, 12 years later, I circled back and took a class and got my degree. But but I went to school to be an educator, and that kind of opened my eyes to, you know, in many ways, I couldn't really agree with some of the methods and the practices. And I knew there were many great teachers who just bound by the system. We're in the United States system. It would be very difficult to do education the way I believed in. So I went into marketing, sales. I like that. I like that it challenged me. And along the way, my younger brother, who is a tech guy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he had an idea for a business. He was a former web developer, and he had this idea to create drag and drop software for funnels.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, funnels weren't big; it was pages. A lot of landing pages. So the name
Yep.
of the company was called 10-minute pages. And so we launched that in 2013, did very well, used the affiliate model,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a seven-figure business within a few months. And a part of me thought, wow, we could really go big. At the time, I don't know how long you've been in marketing or business, but at the time, optimized press was like the big dog.
Mm-hmm.
ClickFunnels did not exist. In fact, our launch kind of ClickFunnels sped up to launch. It was like a summer where 3-page companies were launching,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, wow, cool, this is exciting. But again, it was software. It was very technical.
Mm-hmm.
There was no real contact with people. I was writing a lot of sales copy and stuff like that, and it was okay, but I honestly wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, working with family, there's a lot of fights and and conflicts. I have two brothers, and we were all working on the project together with a younger sister. So, and it truly was my younger brother's baby. He's a tech guy, and so after a while, it just didn't work out. I wanted to do something that involved people, and I hopped around trying different things, had some successes, had some failures. And over time, I felt like I got kind of overwhelmed as a father and
Mm-hmm.
even depressed, right? Like when I say depressed, I'm usually a pretty happy guy. And I just wasn't. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to meet people. I didn't want to put my face on a podcast or a stream. And I was losing my self confidence because I wasn't providing the way I wanted to provide, and I also wasn't really spending time with my family. I mean, I was in their presence all the time, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there. I
Yeah.
wasn't attentive. And I listened to one of the podcasts you had, or the guy said, your family almost becomes a nuisance to you, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the energy I didn't want to put out there. And I took some time and I said, you know what? I always had this vision to travel with my family. My parents moved around with us a little bit when we were kids, mainly because they were going to school. And, so I was born in Canada because my dad was studying there. And then we went to the Caribbean because my parents are from there and he had to work. And then we went to America. And, I moved around a little bit. And I said, you know what? I want my children to have a similar experience where they meet people from all over the world, where they get out of their comfort zone. And so I put a plan together, needed to make a little bit of money, save a little bit of money. And then in October 2018, just
Mm-hmm.
took the leap, took the leap, and came to Mexico and have been around a few places, but settled in Mexico for the foreseeable future. And I took this time to just kind of start figuring out who am I and what do I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really figure out the what I wanted to do, but I did figure out the how I wanted to live.
Mm.
And I began to realize that, as much as I told myself the story that business is kind of who I am, that really the thing that I had the most fun doing was being a father.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I began to think, well, I need to figure out how to optimize my life to the things that make me happy, the things that really kind of make me happy. And so instead of asking how much money does this make, I began to ask some other questions. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I say about having a vision for your family is really saying, a lot of times we chase a number. I want six figures a year, six figures a month, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a month. And it's usually an arbitrary number that's supposed to mean something to people who have never achieved it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we really think about what we're looking for, it's usually we're looking for some kind of lifestyle, whatever that means. And so it's important to kind of get clear on what does that mean? Does it mean a Lamborghini? Does it mean five-star resorts? Does it mean? And for me, it meant more time, not stressing with the people I love.
Exactly.
And so that's where I begin to dig into models again and say, okay, because like I saw my younger brother who he had, the business was left for him to run, and it had peaks and valleys and a lot of stress, and he did very well, and is still doing well with it. But I look around at different people's lifestyles, and I said, well, what do I want? Do I want like this much money in the bank account, this much taxes to file every year, this many employees, or do I want a life optimized to happiness? And so that's where I started looking at models and started getting clear. Okay, I need residual income. If,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not a recurring residual, for me, that doesn't fit in my goal. Now, of course, there's headaches with every model, right?
Mm-hmm.
But things like that. It has to be scalable. It has to be scalable from a computer.
Mm-hmm.
No big infrastructure, no office infrastructure. I've got to be able to do it from my laptop flexibly, in a flexible way. So flexibility was a big one. And so we began to kind of get some clarity on those models and start putting those things into place. And we're still working on that. So I had a teaching and recruiting company that I ran with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were affiliates for that company. And so she focused on the teaching English part. I
Mm-hmm.
focused on the marketing and building the affiliate side, helping teachers join in. And that was good because a lot of people that are traveling need income. They don't all have the skills in marketing and copywriting and running ads and things like that. And oftentimes, a lot of those you can lose a lot more money than you
Yep.
make if you don't know what you're doing. And so, it was cool to present a little, partnership for people who are traveling where they can make $3,000, $4,000 a month from the comfort of their home, but without like really great skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that works. And if you live in certain parts of the world, you can get by with that pretty comfortably, right? And so that was good and is okay. But now we're working on some new things. And to circle back to the first question, how do you raise entrepreneurs? Well, one thing I could say is start a business, start a family business.
Mm.
Start a family business and start giving them little pieces of control of that, right? And a lot of kids, if you give them some control, they'll try to take it all over. Uh, so, so that's what we're doing right now. We're actually we don't have a website or funnel or anything like that. We're really just creating content together as a family on our Instagram channel, and then we're going to be doing it on our YouTube channel. And it's cool because it allows the family to get involved. It allows us to grow in skills. Our kind of title is our freedom journey,
Mm.
and so it's really like it's kind of broad. It's about financial freedom. It's about, how you can attain that through entrepreneurship and investing. But it's also about education, right? Liberating yourself, education. So we're going to be showing how we unschool and world school our kids, and allow them to participate in kind of like building of that project. How to monetize and that kind of stuff. The way my mind works is I can always think of ways to monetize. The problem has been, can you execute and stick with a project long enough? Because you can monetize through merch, you can monetize through a membership community, info products, all types of different ways. So it's cool that we're working together on a project. It allows the kids to identify that, wow, like, okay, I can build something, I can make something. And to me, education has to be practical. And they want it to be practical. They don't want to just like do an abstract project. They want to film something, and they want to like design something for the thumbnail or design something for the end slate, or they understand that if it's necessary, then they feel valuable. And so that's one of the things we're working on. Once we get that up and running, then I'll go off and get some clarity on some personal projects that I want to work on. But yeah, that's what's been going on with me, man.
Man, that sounds really cool. So yeah, I've noticed for my kids, and they're 6 and 4, but if you want them to do stuff and you're like, okay, you have to do this, and this, and then you thought it aloud, this, and this, and this, and come on, let's go. And
right.
like, yeah, sure. But now, because I'm big on morning routines, right?
Right.
And I wanted my 6-year-old to do it. So I really started looking at like, hey, listen, you want to do this. Well, for this, you need to develop yourself. And daddy does that by his morning routine. Would you like to learn that? And then actually dad's going to pay you, right? Because the better I develop myself, the more money I make. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay you. He's like, oh, that's great. I said, okay. And then I involved him in the whole process. What would you like to do? What would you like to read? What would what are the affirmations that you would like to say to yourself? And how do you go about doing this? So that makes a lot of fun. And that's exactly what you're doing, right? So now we got a family business, and it's like, okay, hey, why don't you do this? And then they figure it out. And it's amazing, because you think, sometimes you're like, they're so tiny, right? They're so small still. Are they going to be able to? And then they're like, and they're already 10 steps ahead of you. Like, all right, I definitely underestimated you.
You're 100% correct. And I mean, I have kind of a motto of less is more. I grew up with more being more, kind of pushed on me, but I've experimented with my kids, so to speak. And so it's always been a less is more, because if they come to it on their own, I notice they have a greater intensity when they approach it, and they have greater ownership over it.
Yeah.
So we prompt them. Yeah, like I'll slide a personal development book, but if I say, come listen to this personal development podcast with me, that's the quickest way to get them to be like, well, that's not very cool. I don't want anything to do with that. And I got to give my thanks to my parents, because even though my dad was a big educator, I still remember him listening to personal development tapes when I was very young. And I saw him playing around with meditation. He didn't really stick with it, but I saw him. And what are you doing, Dad? And lie down on the ground with him, and it stuck. It really stuck, And I just exposed them to a bunch of different things. And example is probably the best way. We always try to change our kids, but what I found, and I'm still learning, is that the best way to educate your kids is to just work on yourself. Let them see you doing the morning routine. Let them see you exercising. And by you doing it, they understand subconsciously there's value in that, So I'm, like I said, I'm only 10 years in this game. I'm sure there's a lot more I need to learn, but I'm figuring it out every day.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of it. You just keep evolving and keep learning as long as that's what you want. I think if you don't, then, it's, for me, it's like, then it's game over, right? It's done. Also, one thing I just want to share real quick before we end this thing, and you're going to share with people where they can reach you. What I found is, for example, what you say, right? Do your morning routine so they can see it. Even if you think like, oh yeah, they're just playing, they're not watching. Dude, they're watching. It's incredible. Like I told my son, okay, but you have to do some meditation, right? So he did 30 seconds. Now last time he did, today for the first time he did a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, go ahead. Here's Daddy's meditation pillow. He immediately sat down. He immediately put his hands like Daddy does and stuff like that. I'm like, what are you doing now? He's like, I saw you. I'm like, when? What? When? So it's
Yeah. He might not even know when. It's like he's got it, man. Yeah, awesome. Awesome story.
Exactly. So, man, Owen, thank you so much, man. We're at 25 minutes. I don't want to keep you on too long. So I really appreciate it. Share with the people real quick if they have any questions, want to follow you, if they want to follow you guys as a family on Instagram. I want to do that. Where can we find all of you guys this stuff?
Well, great. Well, I would say this. If you want to follow me on Our Freedom Journey, Instagram.com/Our Freedom Journey. That's where everything will kind of spin out from. And you'll be able to track me to my personal Instagram page and things like that. But that's the project for the next quarter that we're working on. And you'll be able to find the YouTube channel and things like that from there as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's fantastic. So people, definitely, I'm following. You all can do whatever you want, but I'm definitely going to be following that. Again, Owen, thank you so much. Everybody else, thank you for being on either live or listening to this on YouTube, on Facebook, or on the podcast, wherever it is. Make sure that you show some appreciation. Hit that heart button, hit that like button, subscribe button, whatever it is. And we will see each other, listen to each other, hear each other very, very soon. Take care.
Hey, Klaas, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure. And I appreciate the time we spent together, man. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, people. Take care. Bye-bye.